Let us go to the New York Times, a former newspaper, and visit our favorite den of iniquity, the op-ed page, or as we call it, Knucklehead Road.
Oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, ho. Let's go waltzing down to Knucklehead Road.
Paul Krugman, who may be the biggest knucklehead on Knucklehead Road, it's hard to tell because sometimes one of them and sometimes another. He has a column, so help me, it is called Why It Can Happen Here. And for those of you who haven't been alive for 180 years, it can happen here is the phrase they used to say about fascism. Fascism can't happen here because we're protected by the American way. We're protected by the Constitution. We're protected by that culture of free speech we used to have before Facebook and Google put it to an end. So that's the idea. But when you say why it can happen here, he's talking about fascism. And he says we're very close, ooh, we're so close to becoming another Poland or Hungary. In both countries, the ruling parties, Law and Justice in Poland, Fidesz in Hungary, have established regimes that maintain the forms of popular elections, but oh my, they have destroyed the independence of the judiciary, suppressed freedom of the press, institutionalized large-scale corruption, and effectively delegitimized dissent. The result seems likely to be one-party rule for the foreseeable future. Let's just pause for just a minute and take each one of those in turn. They maintain the forms of popular elections. We don't have popular elections. We have electoral elections. Donald Trump won. They have been bitching and moaning about this ever since it happened. They have refused, after telling us how horrible it was that Trump said he might not accept the results of the election. They have refused. They have destroyed the independence of the judiciary. Whose judges are the ones who make stuff up? Whose judges are the ones who say, oh, yeah, Trump can't make immigration. It says, the law says that Trump can make the immigration rules, but I say he can't. Who does that? Only leftist judges. Suppress freedom of the press. Who shuts up whom? Where? Point to me one time, Paul Krugman, one lousy time the right shuts down anybody. It is the left at Google that has, when you put in searches on Donald Trump, only bad news comes up. When you put up searches for right-wing things, you get all this fact-checking by left-wing people. If you go on Facebook, they're taking down Dennis Prager, and oh, it's a mistake. It's a terrible mistake that never happens to the left, never, ever happens to the left. YouTube demonetizing our videos, demonetizing all conservative material. Who shuts down whom, okay? And institutionalized large-scale corruption and effectively delegitimized dissent. Oh, that's when Trump used the IRS to silence his political opponents. Oh, wait, I meant Obama. Obama did that. And Obama also used the Justice Department to spy on an opponent's campaign. So who is doing all this stuff? Where is the it can't happen here happening from? All right. He goes on, he says it could all too easily happen here. There was a time not long ago when people used to say that our democratic norms, our proud history of freedom would protect us from such a slide into tyranny. In fact, some people still say that, but believing such a thing today, I got to give this the real Paul Krugman reading, but believing such a thing today requires willful blindness. The fact is that the Republican Party, who hasn't silenced anybody, hasn't stretched the rules of constitutional governance, the Republican Party is ready, even eager, to become an American version of Poland and Hungary, exploiting its current political power to lock in permanent rule. That's what we're looking at. First, he says, let's look at what's happening at the state level. Then he brings up a couple of things. He says in North Carolina, after a Democrat won the governorship, Republicans used the incumbent's final days to pass legislation stripping the governor's office of much of its power. This is a power struggle that they're having in North Carolina, and they're playing very hardball politics, no question about it. But go back and remember 2011 when Governor Scott Walker in Wisconsin did in fact break up the unions and basically establish the state as a right to work state, and to keep from voting on it, the Democratic lawmakers left town. Do you remember that? They hid in a hotel and across the state line, and they refused to come in and vote on it. So, politics can get hard boiled. It's not exactly the fascist. It's not like the Nazi flag going up. And Wisconsin, by the way, is doing great economically because of what the governor did over there. All right, in Georgia, Krugman goes on, Republicans tried to use transparently phony concerns about access for disabled voters to close most of the polling places in a mainly black district. A consultant came in and said these polling places are not suitable and they cost too much. Let's close them down. Black people said, you know what, those are our polling places. So the council said, all right, don't do it. and it was over. I mean, this is the fascism. Our government is crumbling. It's crumbling. You can see the little bricks of freedom are falling. In West Virginia, Republican legislators exploited complaints about excessive spending to impeach the entire state Supreme Court. The entire state Supreme Court is in a massive overspending scandal that has already cost people their free. I mean, people have already been charged in this. This is not a political ploy. This is a scandal going on. So all his references are all fake. They're all ridiculous. They're all politics. Some of it is politics, is hardball politics. But basically, I mean, if this is his proof that fascism has come to America, Paul Krugman is living in his own backside. He is not living in the light of day. So now he goes on the national level. Now listen to the crisis on the national level. We're currently sitting on a knife edge. We're balanced on a knife edge between fascism and freedom. Here we are. It's terrible. If we fall off it in the wrong direction, specifically, if Republicans retain control of both houses in Congress in November, this is the crisis. We will become another Poland or Hungary faster than you can imagine. And you can believe this because this is from Paul Krugman, who said the stock market was never going to recover from Donald Trump's election. So when this man talks, he's spouting nonsense. Many Trump critics celebrated last week's legal developments, taking the Manafort conviction and the Cohen guilty plea as signs that the walls may finally be closing in on the lawbreaker in chief. But I felt a sense of deepened dread as I watched the Republican reaction faced with undeniable evidence of Trump's thuggishness. His party closed ranks around him more tightly than ever. This goes even for politicians who once seemed to have some principles, like Susan Collins of Maine. She sees no problem with having a president who's an unindicted co-conspirator, a phrase that has not been used in court, by the way, or not been used by any legal team, unindicted co-conspirator, appoint a Supreme Court justice who believes that presidents are immune from prosecution. Now, Bill Clinton was under investigation for most of his presidency. He was impeached for committing perjury, right? He appointed Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Stephen Breyer, two of the most unconstitutional left-wing hacks on the Supreme Court. Nobody said that was an illegitimate thing to do, right? But in Paul Krugman's universe, this is the end of America. I mean, it is just, it is all a terrible crisis.